Ever imagined what it would be like to drive on an F1 track going up to 360 kilometers per hour? Now that sounds amazing, doesn't it? But just hold that thought, because you might think again after watching about the dangerous tracks listed below. In the mood to find out what the weirdest and most crazy F1 tracks are? Then stick around, because we're here for you, and trust us, these tracks will leave you in awe, with the number 1 track having a mind-blowing 69 fatal accidents on it. Number 10. Las Vegas. In wealthy sport like Formula 1, Las Vegas should go hand in hand, right? Well, that's not always true. Sin City was not as glamorous as you might expect, with a pretty dull track built in the midst of a parking lot. Located in the middle of the Nevada desert, there was little to no elevation difference, and it was widely called to be the worst circuit F1 has ever been to. The track design was poor, and the anti-clockwise rotation caused enormous pressure on the drivers' necks. The track was 3.6 kilometers long and only staged 2 races. The track was broad in spots and, of course, a temporary circuit because it was staged in the famed Caesars Palace Hotel parking lot. Although the hotel anticipated that hosting the 2 races in 1981 and 1982 would be financially lucrative, it had the opposite effect, and they suffered significant losses by holding the event in their parking lot. Number 9. Aarhus. Nobody's notion of a perfect circuit arrangement is blasting up one side of a highway and down the other. That, however, was the course that hosted the 1959 German Grand Prix. In the pre-war years, when streamlined bodywork was popular, the historic Aarhus track, an abbreviation for the German Automobile Traffic and Training Road, held Grand Prix vehicles. The terrifyingly steep banking of the North Turn was its defining feature, and it survived when the track was used in a modified configuration in 1959. Tony Brooks won the race for Van Wall after starting from pole position and averaging 237 kilometers per hour. However, the event was marred by tragedy when French icon Jean Barre was murdered in a collision in the sports car race that preceded the Grand Prix. Number 8. Monaco. Monaco is a well-known and beloved circuit. However, it must be acknowledged what a weird circuit arrangement it is. The event, which revolves around the tiny principality of Monte Carlo, has been staged every year since 1955, except in 2020. It is connected with some of the sport's most significant moments. The combination of Grand Prix racing vehicles with this little, narrow Côte d'Azur circuit is odd and comical. If a promoter presented such an event as a new addition to the program, they would be scoffed at. When Nelson Piquet described Monaco as riding a bicycle around your apartment, he wasn't exaggerating. The length of the circuit is a fairly small 3.3 kilometers, including a tunnel and tight hairpins. It has a significant number of safety precautions installed throughout the decades, as it was hosted around the streets of Monaco. Drivers would repeatedly smash into buildings, railway stations, trees, and even the beautiful port until they had Armco barriers installed. Number 7. Valencia. The Valencia street circuit was a contemporary anomaly, with teams operating out of garages erected in a fish market, a swing bridge that was asphalted shut, a backdrop of America's Cup team camps, and an urban environment that was a bizarre mix of street circuit and permanent course. From 2008 to 2012, F1 competed here 5 times, with Michael Schumacher memorably securing the lone podium result of his 3-year return with Mercedes at the last race. The track was quickly abandoned, but Fernando Alonso's roaring triumph from 11th on the grid in a subpar Ferrari in the last race ensures that we will remember this strange location for at least one memorable racing effort. Number 6. Indianapolis. Forget the dubious argument that the Bahrain Outer Circuit is a nearly oval. From 1950 to 1960, the World Championship raced at the finest oval of them all, the Brickyard. Although there was some crossover of vehicles and races, the Indianapolis 500 was included in the schedule to justify the label of World Championship. No driver who scored points in those 11 races ever scored a point in a traditional Grand Prix, though Alberto Ascari did compete in the 1952 event on his path to the title. Following Ayrton Senna's death, some tracks had to be modified for safety reasons. Some of these were permanent, such as the construction of a hairpin at Estoril in 1994, where Williams driver Damon Hill flipped after Eddie Irvine spun his Jordan into him during practice. Number 5. Monza. You may recognize Monza as a modern-day circuit, but did you know that in 1955, 1956, 1960, and 1961, F1 raced at Monza, which comprised an oval with banking? Sterling Moss and Phil Hill both won 2 Grand Prix on the 10-kilometer course, which comprised a 4.25-kilometer oval. The oval section of the course had high and steep banking, and as previously noted, banking was prohibited from F1 in 1961 following an accident during the Grand Prix. During the 1961 race, Wolfgang von Trips collided with Jim Clark, sending von Trips' vehicle airborne and into obstacles, killing himself and 15 spectators. Tragic moments like this shouldn't be happening, but it is what it is. Although this collision did not occur on the actual oval portion of the course, it served as the ultimate reason for F1 to prohibit racing on banking. Number 4. Pescara. The Pescara circuit in Italy was an incredible 25.8-kilometer racetrack that only staged one official F1 championship event in 1957, owing to other races being cancelled that year. Regarding lap distance, it is still the longest track to hold an F1 race. Crowds flocked to the circuit, with estimates putting the attendance at 200,000. Sir Stirling Moss won in his Van Wall VW5, followed by Juan Manuel Fangio in second and Harry Schell in third. It was a road route through various communities and formed a roughly triangular shape. The course, which included not one but two 5.5-kilometer straights, was deemed so hazardous that even Enzo Ferrari refused to allow his drivers to race in the 1957 Grand Prix. When Enzo Ferrari, a man known for replacing deceased drivers, instantly refused to allow his drivers to race at Pescara, you knew it was risky. Fangio, who put his Maserati on the pole for the race, posted a pole time of more than 9 minutes and averaged 98 miles per hour on the lap. Moss, on the other hand, won with a race time of 2 hours and 59 minutes. Fangio finished nearly 3 minutes later in second place. Number 3. Dallas. They say everything is bigger in Texas, but perhaps not for a racetrack. The one and only Dallas Grand Prix is not favorably remembered by Formula One. It was scorching hot, had a crumbling track surface, and was dubbed a farce by numerous racers. It was one of a slew of American city tracks that appeared during this era after Las Vegas, Detroit, and Phoenix. It was surprisingly speedy for a street circuit and even elicited a rare error from Alan Prost. Worse, it was evident that there would be major issues with the Grand Prix, with a Can-Am race the day before ripping up the track surface. Emergency resurfacing did not assist, and several drivers were caught off guard when the track broke up on race day. Number 2. Reims. If the Bahrain Outer Circuit qualifies as a nearly oval, clearly the Reims circuit, which hosted the French Grand Prix irregularly in the early years of the World Championship, was the forerunner for that designation. With straights of little over 2 kilometers and a handful of slow bends, it was a super-fast track with some memorable slipstreaming clashes, most notably between Mike Hawthorne and Juan Manuel Fangio in 1953. After holding 11 World Championship races, Reims finally fell out of favor due to budgetary difficulties. Number 1. Nürburgring Nordschleife. The Green Hell is the renowned road circuit 22.8 kilometers of the world's most difficult road track. It's hard to believe that Grand Prix cars raced here until 1976, when Niki Lauda's accident demonstrated that the Nordschleife was no longer appropriate for Formula One vehicles. Surprisingly, this spectacular, natural road course was artificial, developed in the 1920s as a proving ground and race circuit. It was a work of design brilliance, tree-lined, undulating, and fearsomely fast. And some of the greatest exploits in Grand Prix racing occurred here. Juan Manuel Fangio's drive to victory for Maserati in 1957 and Jackie Stewart's supremacy in the wet in 1968 are among the finest successes on a circuit where glory frequently flirted with disaster. Which of these tracks do you believe is the weirdest in your opinion? Comment below.